It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the fin side. Inside. It ain't the left side.
Thank you, Solo D. Welcome to another episode of On the Fin Side, here with Brian Catanzaro and Paul Pickin. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, iTunes, Spreaker, and on YouTube. Paul, one of the many things talked about this offseason among Dolphins fans, Jarvis Landry is a free agent after the 2017 season. They're far apart on a contract extension right now, but the Landry camp has made it clear that they're not going to hold out this year, and they're not going to discuss the contract after the season starts in week one. So I'll tell you, Paul, here's how a typical Twitter conversation or Facebook conversation goes when I even throw this topic out here, okay? The first thing I say is, would you re-sign Jarvis Landry? Dolphins fans do a contract extension, and 90% of the responses are basically insulted that I even brought the topic up. And I say, okay, fine. So tell me, how much would you re-sign Jarvis Landry for? Doesn't matter. Just give him whatever he wants. You got to re-sign one of your best players. And I say, okay, fine. 5 years, $70 million, $40 million guaranteed. And then the response I get is, oh, come on, don't be ridiculous. He's not going to get that. No, he might, because when you take a look at Jarvis Landry, he can go to the negotiating table saying, I caught more passes in the first 3 years than any player in the history of the sport, and I think that he's going to use that to his advantage at the negotiating table.
Oh, he probably will. I mean, and I do think there will come a point in the negotiations where he is going to be willing to offer some form of hometown discount, but I don't think his point of hometown discount is going to be, say, the same as the Kenny Stills point of hometown discount. I think you're probably going to see a scenario where he may get 5 years, 70 out on the open market, but I think Miami can probably keep him for 5 years, somewhere in the neighborhood of a creative 55 to 65 million. And, you know, that does average out to somewhere around 12 million a year. But over the course of that contract, you're able to structure things a little more creatively, and there's probably going to be an out clause somewhere in there just in case something happens. But also, that total average of $12 million a year, say, is not going to look as big towards the end of the life of a contract as is typical with all of the long contracts that are out there, especially given the fact that the NFL is looking to expand into Europe, expand into other markets. Should go up even more, which brings the salary cap up with it because of how the salary cap is formulated. So there's a lot of things here that I'd really be okay with a 5-year, $12 million contract.
5 years, $12 million per year is probably at the point I start to tap out. And here's why. I mean, yeah, Jarvis Landry, I think, is an outstanding player. In fact, after the catch, I think he might be the best in the league. And if you have him returning punts full time, which I want, I think he might be one of the best in the league at that too. But I really think the Dolphins play better when the ones who are making plays are Kenny Stills, Devontae Parker, and Jay Ajayi. Now, that doesn't mean Landry's a bad player. I mean, I don't think you're a Dolphins fan if you don't love Jarvis Landry. But I look at the rest of the roster and think, do I want Landry back for $13 million when I believe Devontae Parker, when healthy, is going to eclipse the 1,000-yard mark? I think Kenny Stills is going to catch more passes. I think Kenyon Drake's going to get more touches. I think Julius Thomas is going to catch 40 or 50 balls this year. And then I look and think, I don't know if I want the Dolphins spending $12 or $13 million a year on a guy who might catch 75 passes for 950 yards.
I think that's fair, but I think there's a point of, yes, Kenny Stills is going to be that guy that when you need that big chunk play, you rely on more than any of the other receivers right now anyway. Until Devontae Parker proves otherwise, Kenny Stills is the guy. Jarvis Landry is the move the sticks guy. He's the guy when you've got a third and medium, unless we go back to having Dave Wanstead on the coach as a head coach, which third and medium, third and long, run the damn ball. No. That's a scenario where Jarvis Landry is going to be, as it stands right now, the biggest and most reliable receiver. Can Devontae Parker essentially take over some aspects of both of those roles? Yes, he can if he continues to put the effort in that he's shown this offseason. But as it stands right now, Jarvis Landry is one of the most reliable options in the league. both in terms of if he catches the ball short of the sticks, with what you alluded to, with what he's able to do after the catch, as well as what he's able to do when he catches the ball beyond the sticks, which is obviously already a first down. In addition to that, I will give Landry a lot of credit because we saw some issues with this at times. But he's a guy that, unlike Mike Wallace, who the Dolphins did pay that $12 million a year contract when that was an even bigger portion of the salary cap, Jarvis Landry is a guy that you're going to see play in and play out downfield blocking for Kenny Stills or Kenyon Drake or Jay Ajayi. He's going to be that guy that's down there doing all those extra things. So when I factor all that in, I'm completely good with the $12 million a year. If you start talking 13, I start to get queasy. If you start talking north of 13, I get really queasy because at that point you do, as you alluded to, have to consider what else you can do with that cap space. And that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, is what else can you do with that cap space? Would you rather have two players who make $6 or $7 million a year when your wide receiver position would still probably be okay with Parker, with Stills, and maybe Leonte Crew and Jakeem Grant show something at that receiver spot too? I think a good barometer is the contract T.Y. Hilton signed for the Colts 2 years ago. 5 years, $65 million, $28 million guaranteed. Sounds right about what I would expect Landry to get. But he's got a lot of bargaining power at the negotiating table. You're listening to On the Fin Side here with Brian Cat Catanzaro and Paul Picken. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, iTunes, Spreaker, and on YouTube. And keep an eye out because we're going to be breaking down the Dolphins' positional battles here in the upcoming shows: guard, linebacker, cornerback, and a lot of other spots. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the thin side. Solo D, take us home.
It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side. Inside. It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side. Listen, Dolphins fans across the land all tuning in to see what Brian Cat and Paul about to do.